Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Thanks to the team over at Bombusby. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at the DNA Design DK-30 upgrade kit for the Transformers Kingdom / Legacy leader class Galvatron. Now for those of you looking to add this set to the collection, it is currently available and in stock right now over at Bombusby, so for that of course I'll be sure to pack a link down in the description box below. Now much like the upgrade kit that came out very recently for the MPM-12 Optimus Prime, I've actually been really looking forward to seeing as to what DNA Design would come up with in terms of Kingdom Galvatron. Whilst that figure in my personal opinion is by far the best representation we've ever seen officially for the character, he definitely wasn't without his problems, and it's safe to say that upon first glance this kit here does appear to perfect pretty much all of the wrongs that I found with that original Hasbro offering. Now we'll very quickly actually go over the pack contents. So you can see here at the top we do receive a brand new faceplate for Galvatron so that we can switch out a few alternative expressions, which I personally think is a great touch. We also do get some ankle boosts just to increase the overall height of Galvatron to better match that of a traditional leader class. And finally, we actually get fully articulated fingers. Now this was something that I was super surprised not to see already pre-installed on the official offering, as of course with the likes of the Earthrise Optimus Prime, that guy came with articulated fingers, and we even saw them with the Voyager class Hot Rod, which was more along the lines of a deluxe scale Transformer. So really cool to see that we are finally getting them here with this upgrade set. We also do get a blast effect, as well as a proper die-cast chain, which I'll showcase its integration later on in the video, and an actual blaster which matches the appearance of how it appeared in the show. Now much like the MPM Optimus Prime upgrade set that I did, basically I'll just give you guys how to install one half of the kit, pause, showcase a comparison directly between the half that came stock on the figure and of course the half that is now upgraded by DNA Design. Then I'll proceed to go away, install the other half off camera, and then we'll review the kit as a whole. And before I forget, we also do get included some almost gap fillers for those who perhaps actually received the incorrectly assembled shoulders for Galvatron. You can basically push these into the front just to create for a slightly cleaner look, and we also do get this pin puncher, which I believe is utilized in order to actually remove some of the interchangeable facial expressions. So with all that being said, let's bring out our Legacy / Kingdom Galvatron and install this upgrade kit on one of the cruelest leaders of the Decepticons. Now, taking a break from the actual installation process so that I'm able to give you guys a direct comparison between the stock side of Galvatron and of course the side of which now has all of the upgrade components fully installed, you can see that it does indeed actually make quite a significant difference. Now, as you were probably able to tell from the installation process itself, we've basically replaced this entire front section of the helmet besides the head crest to now allow us to actually swap out the faceplates for Galvatron. Now, in my personal opinion, this is genius. It allows us to bring some much needed personality to this character, and of course when I actually install the other side and review the kit as a whole, I'll go through some of the individual faceplates themselves, but definitely straight off the bat that there is looking fantastic. You can see that the matrix of leadership is now able to be harnessed via a die-cast chain, something which the original version was unable to do, and you can see that the instructions do actually state you peg it into the torso. Now, this is the same port that you would use if you were to transform him up into the cannon mode, but you can still use it here for robot mode. Personally, however, I do like to detach this and just kind of have it free flowing around Galvatron's neck. The only downside with that is that more than likely it will be facing down towards the ground, so I can definitely see as to why the instructions, they do mention you actually porting it here into the top section of the chest. Now, as mentioned previously, we also do get some gap fillers. Now, personally, I've decided not to install these just as I do have a Galvatron with the correctly assembled shoulders, and on the instructions it does also state that you can use them even if you do have the correct orientation. But here for bot mode, I personally have always liked to actually tab the tank treads into the back of the shoulders, so that is why I will not be installing them here for this review. But as we just come down here to the arms, you can see we completely swapped out the fist. Now, whilst these are not 100% perfect, and I'll touch base with why later on in the video, you can see that they now are pretty much fully articulated, which is really awesome. Definitely a lot better when in comparison to what we saw here from the stock figure. And then as we come down here to the legs, probably the biggest and most noticeable change, you can see that we've essentially got an entire half-inch actually added to the overall height of this figure. Now, for those of you who actually thought that the lower section of Galvatron was slightly too stubby in contrast to the broad shoulders, I know that you're definitely going to be happy about this. And to be fair, considering this guy is a leader class, I'm just happy to add some much needed boost to this character to really make him a true to form leader. So there are basically all of the massive changes in terms of what you actually do to the base figure of Galvatron. Of course, there are some alternative accessories which we'll touch base with in just a second, but what I'll do now is of course install the other half of the kit, and then we'll take a look at it as a whole, switch out some of those faceplates, showcase how these hands can in fact actually now grip the matrix of leadership, and I'll also showcase how some of these new components do integrate into Galvatron's cannon mode. And behold, Galvatron. Now, of course, as we've just done that very quick comparison between the stock side and of course the side of which has all of the upgrade components actually equipped, we'll waste no time at all and of course delve into the actual integration of some of those alternative faceplates. So you can see the first one we get included is this really awesome menacing smirk that, to be honest, just adds so much more personality to this Galvatron when in comparison to the stock head that was provided to us by Hasbro. Now, in regards to some of the other faceplates, we once again do get included a more stern, neutral expression, which personally I probably will never be displaying with this character, and then a rather bizarre faceplate, which kind of gives the impression that Galvatron is perhaps either giving a maniacal smile or some form of laughter. Honestly, it doesn't look the best when in fact actually integrated, but I'll showcase how it does look on the figure. Now, actually removing the faceplates is easier said than done. Basically, you're going to want to take what is essentially a pin puncher and come here to the underside, and this is exactly how the instructions showcase you use this, and tuck this under here and basically just pry this faceplate here forward, which I personally am not a massive fan of at all, as it does require quite a bit of force to actually get this here detached. And as you can see, I am not having the best of luck, and that just absolutely catapulted somewhere in the review station, so hopefully we'll be able to find that later on. But just to showcase how this alternate plate does attach, you can see there is a port and a tab here on the back, so we do just align this up here appropriately, snap that there into place, and there we have a Galvatron with a really bizarre maniacal smile, almost like he's laughing at the defeat of the Autobots. And once again, it definitely does add some much needed personality to this character, and it is in fact actually quite a cool concept to give these types of Transformers characters alternative facial expressions. It definitely does bring a lot to the table in regards to display options, so really am happy with the finished result. It's just the integration I personally don't find is the best. Had there been an easier way to replace this, this, I just think it would have made the entire experience a lot more enjoyable. Then we turn our attention here down to the articulated fingers. Now, for the most part, these are awesome. You can see that much like Earthrise Optimus Prime, these can now be fully opened and closed. I'm not a huge fan of the obvious semicircle. It would have been cool had they tried to make this not so in your face, much like we saw with Earthrise Prime and that Voyager Hot Rod, but nevertheless, definitely a lot better when in comparison to the stock release. Now, the actual index finger itself is kind of sculpted at a slight angle, which doesn't look too bad in some poses, but when you actually take into account that the other three fingers are in fact basically able to be straightened out, it really does kind of add some insult to injury. I would have much rather had this here been straightened out than sculpted in this pre-pose, as it just is quite unnatural unless you have Galvatron pulling off an almost fist, so that definitely isn't the best. But with the articulated fingers, it does actually allow him to hold the matrix of leadership. Unicron, I now possess that which you most fear, the matrix of leadership, which I'll showcase in some images towards the end of the video. And then as we come down here to the lower section, of course, we now essentially have this entire component here, which is brand new, which just adds, I'd say, roughly half an inch of height to the overall figure, which in my personal opinion is actually pretty awesome. I know there were some out there that weren't hugely keen on Galvatron basically having some stocky legs. However, in some angles, I do kind of think as if though now he looks slightly too lanky. So I really do think that it will just be up to your own personal preference as to whether or not you do ultimately decide to display Galvatron with these brand new upgrade components. And then in terms of some additional accessories, we do get included this awesome blaster, which has been sculpted so nicely. You can see completely cast out of black with some awesome metallic silver highlights. And of course, we do get included an almost pinkish red blast effect, which can either be inserted into the barrel of this blaster or into the actual plasma cannon of Galvatron himself. And just to show you guys how this here looks in the hand, we do just slide that in like so. And there is Galvatron packing in some seriously needed firepower. That was also something that I mentioned in my initial review, that instead of those rather pointless revenge ships, they should have given us something along the lines of this. So it is good to see that DNA Design have basically perfected the majority of the wrongs, and overall, at least here in bot mode, I do think this kit is incredibly effective. It really is. Just when it comes down to kind of the swappable faceplates, I think it kind of falls slightly lackluster. I do just wish there was a better, more elegant way to switch those out than essentially projectiling them here with this pin puncher halfway across the room. Now, turning to some size comparisons, here we have Galvatron equipped with those ankle boosts compared alongside the Studio Series 86 Leader Class Grimlock, and you can definitely see that there is a significant increase where the scale is concerned. Now, is this animation accurate? Personally, I don't believe it to be so. Galvatron was never almost head-to-head in regards to scale here with Grimlock, and I personally have always regarded him as being roughly the same size as Megatron, and when we bring the Siege Megatron out for a comparison in just a second, you'll see that there is in fact actually quite a big difference between the two. But for those who in fact actually want their leader class figures to be big and bulky like they were in the old days, then I definitely think this upgrade kit is pretty much going to perfect that here with this Kingdom Galvatron. I'd love to know down in the comment section below, what do you guys think? Are you going to be actually incorporating these ankle boosts into the figure? Do you think that they make him slightly too tall, or will you basically just be leaving the stock legs? I really do think that it is just ultimately going to come down to some personal preference. And talking of Megatron, here we have yet another comparison between Galvatron and of course the Siege Voyager Megatron. So here you can see there is in fact a significant increase where Galvatron was more along the lines of say an extra couple of centimeters taller than Megatron previously. He's now definitely quite a few inches, I'd say maybe 1.5 pushing on 2 inches taller than Megatron, so there is definitely a significant boost here. Personally, I'm actually open for it. I've always thought that if you're going to create a leader class figure, it should be big and bulky, so I really and truly have no issue in fact actually displaying Galvatron like this upon the shelf. And something which I may not have touched base with when we actually took a look at the kit overall, if there was one area of where I think they really could have improved on and maybe could have incorporated an additional accessory, it would be in regard to this back fin piece. I've always thought that it was slightly too small and stubby when in comparison to how it appeared on the animation, so I do think they perhaps could have punctured this pin out and replaced it with an entire new component just to better match how he appeared in the animation. But you can definitely see a significant increase in regards to the scale between these two figures. Now, jumping straight here into the canon mode, just as the transformation is completely untouched despite us actually having some of those new components, I thought that I'd just basically showcase some of the integration of the new accessories. So we'll start off firstly here with the Matrix of Leadership on the die-cast chain. The instructions do just state that you wrap it around this cylindrical section. I imagine because the chain is quite large, if you decide to just kind of rest it on this section, it's going to be drooping down, and then you will proceed to tab it into the same port that we'll utilize for robot mode. Now, in regards to how you in fact actually store the blaster, you're essentially going to do some mistransformation. So we're going to take this piece here and shift this section forwards, and as you guys can see, we do have this massive tab which is created via the handle. So we're now going to take this, tap this section into place, and now these pieces, you'll notice how we've got some tabs here. Basically, you just flip these sections up and they will proceed to tab into place just like so. And of course, repeat the exact same process here on this side. To be honest, it's not the greatest connection. It's just something that the instructions mention so that we can create for a slightly more solid look. And then in regards to kind of the back transformation, despite it being completely unaltered, you will have to basically utilize both of these almost ankle rocker pivots so that he isn't slightly too tall, considering that we now have these ankle boosts. If you were to keep this section straight like you would on the original stock figure, he is just now way too tall, and as you can see, it will definitely create for a rather unusual look. So if you do decide to transform him with these new components, you are definitely going to want to arch this section here back. And so some final thoughts for the DNA Design DK-30 upgrade kit for the Transformers Legacy / Kingdom Leader Class Galvatron. Overall, I think that it's an incredibly simplistic yet very effective kit. The installation process was in fact actually so much more straightforward when in comparison to their recently released NPM 12 upgrade kit, and overall I think it results in a pretty awesome looking robot mode. Of course, the major changes do consist of the interchangeable face pieces as well as the boost where the ankles are concerned, just to make Galvatron slightly bigger and more deserving of that leader class title. Now, will the actual ankle boosts be for everybody? I personally don't think so, especially when you do begin to compare him alongside some of the other mainline characters. Personally, I've never regarded Galvatron as being more or less eye to eye with Grimlock, so I do think where that's concerned the scale is slightly off, but it really is just going to come down to personal preference as to whether or not you want Galvatron to be an almost true to form leader, or you more or less want him basically to scale in regards to animation accuracy. I think the articulated fingers are a really nice touch, definitely a marked improvement when in comparison to what we actually saw stock with the figure, but I really would have loved an additional hinge joint to basically straighten out that index finger. As it stands, it's pretty difficult to get them in natural poses unless you have them in the fists, and that to begin with was already the pose that we saw first time round, so it would have been awesome had you been able to straighten out that index finger. I do love that we now have the die-cast Matrix of Leadership chain. It makes it look slightly more animation accurate, and personally I was just not a huge fan of the sculpt that we saw first time round from Hasbro. I think the inclusion of that sidearm blaster is awesome. It was something that I mentioned in my original review and was super disappointed that it was absent from the original release, so I'm glad to see it packaged in here with this upgrade kit. So overall, I definitely do really like this kit. Could some things have been done slightly better? I really do think so, especially in regards to how you actually switch out some of those faceplates. As you saw earlier on, it's really difficult to actually not only remove the faceplates but prevent them from basically projectiling halfway across the room due to how much force you actually need to push them out. So I do wish that was done slightly better, and I really do wish they could have added some kind of upgrade component to that back fin spike just to make it slightly longer to match how he appeared in the original series. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. What do you guys think of this latest upgrade kit by DNA Design? Is it one that you'll be adding to the collection? If it is currently available and in stock right now over at Bombusby, so for that of course I'll be sure to pack a link down in the description box below, and as always I thank you guys all so much for watching. Until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.